Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome back to the poem of the day for today, Thursday, October the 30th, 2025. And today is our last or second to last entry into the series on Edgar Allan Poe. We've read a lot of his poems, a majority of the ones that are collected in this Tales and Poems book put out by Penguin with a introduction by Guillermo del Toro, who I really admire for his wonderful romantic and haunting films, but also recently the strong stance he took against using AI in his movies, which was really nice to hear that someone still admires the purity of his craft and hiring actual humans. So today, The Bells was published in 1848 and 1849. It was one that was published after Poe had died. And again, it's a pretty famous poem. It's a longer poem. It's in not as long as The Raven, but it is in four cantos, four different kind of broken up pieces. And each canto is one stanza long. This is a very difficult poem to read. So I'm just going to let you know ahead of time, I'm probably going to stumble through this thing. And part of it is because of the onomatopoeia that's all over it, the kind of rushed element of the trochaic tetrameter, but then also the diacopic use of the onomatopoeia. And I'll explain all of those things afterward. But this is another somewhat famous poem of his. So you might have read this before. You might have heard of this one before. I'm going to give it my best. Here goes. Here's The Bells from 1848/1849 by Edgar Allan Poe. Hear the sledges with the bells, silver bells. What a world of merriment their melody foretells, how they tinkle, tinkle, tinkle in the icy air of night, while the stars that oversprinkle all the heavens seem to twinkle with a crystalline delight, keeping time, time, time in a sort of runic rhyme to the tintinnabulation that so musically wells from the bells, 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 from the jingling and the tinkling of the bells. Hear the mellow wedding bells, golden bells. What a world of happiness their harmony foretells. Through the balmy air of night, how they ring out their delight. From the molten golden notes, and all in tune, what a liquid ditty floats to the turtle dove that listens while she gloats on the moon. Oh, from out the sounding cells, what a gush of euphony voluminously wells. How it swells, how it dwells on the future, how it tells of the rapture that impels to the swinging and the ringing of the bells, 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 of the bells, 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 to the rhyming and the chiming of the bells. Hear the loud alarum bells, brazen bells. What a tale of terror now their turbulency tells, in the startled ear of night, how they scream out their affright, to the much horrified to speak, that they can only shriek, shriek, out of tune, in a clamorous appealing to the mercy of the fire, in a mad expostulation with the deaf and frantic fire, leaping higher, 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 with a desperate desire and a resolute endeavor, now to sit, or never, by the side of the pale-faced moon. Oh, the bells, 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 what a tale their terror tells of despair. How they clang and clash and roar. What a horror they outpour in the bosom of the palpitating air. Yet the ear it fully knows, by the twanging and the clanging, how the danger ebbs and flows. Yes, the ear distinctly tells, in the jangling and the wrangling, how the danger sinks and swells, by the sinking or the swelling in the anger of the bells, of the bells, of the bells, 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 in the clamor and the clangor of the bells. Hear the toiling of the bells, iron bells. What a world of solemn thought their monody compels, In the silence of the night, how we shiver with affright, and the melancholy meaning of their tone. For every sound that floats from the rust within their throats is a groan. And the people, the people that dwell up in the steeple, all alone, and who, tolling, tolling, tolling in that muffled monotone, feel a glory in a so rolling on the human heart of stone. They are neither man nor woman. They are neither brute nor human. They are ghouls, and their king it is who tolls, and he rolls, 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 a paean from the bells, and his merry bosom swells with the paean of the bells, and he dances, and he yells, keeping time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme to the paean of the bells keeping time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme to the throbbing of the bells, 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 to the sobbing of the bells, keeping time, 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 as he knells, 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 in a happy runic rhyme to the tolling of the bells, 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 to the toiling of the bells, 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 to the moaning and the groaning of the bells. Okay, that got weird. So I gotta say that I read it in my head. I hadn't read it out loud, and when I read it out loud, gosh, the rhythm sneaks inside of you. And partway through, as I was reading, I was like, "Am I rapping right now? Like, what's going on here?" I'm not a person who has any rhythm, and I'm not a person who has ever. That's the closest I've ever gotten to anything resembling rapping. That was bizarre. Okay, so some notes on this. Holy cow! 4 cantos. First one's shortest. Second's medium. Third and fourth are about the same length. I think the fourth is the longest, so they increase in length as they go. One of the things that you heard many things, many things you probably wish you hadn't heard. But one is the first one begins with sledges of silver bells, merriment, melody, icy air of night. That has a very strong association with winter, jingle bells, bells on a sleigh, right? He talks about twinkling, like the stars in the heavens there, or even think of kind of the twinkling of the glistening off the snow. The crystalline delight makes me think of that kind of crunch of the snow when one steps upon it. We get this wonderful word in here that he claims to have invented, but my research says he did not. Tintinnabulation, which is the extension of tintinnabulum, which is a Latin word for a certain type of bell. So tintinnabulation is to take the Latin root of that word and then to extend it into the very kind of process of the sound that it's making. And then it ends with the jingling and tinkling. And one of the ways that you can see the poem kind of descend from joyousness and celebration and glee into something much, much darker is by looking at those first and final lines of each stanzas, right? So we begin this one with the sledges of the bells, silver bells, ending with jingling and tinkling of the bells. The second one then goes to wedding, right? Another thing that's for a lot of people worth celebrating and joyful. Golden bells here instead of silver, we've gone to gold. And then by the end of this stanza, we're at the rhyming and the chiming. All right. Again, something that's melodious, something that's in sync, something that celebrates the pairing of the two people, the togetherness of the two people, that they're rhyming with one another. They ring together. Then we get alarm bells. Fire alarms, something like that. These are described as brazen and turbulent, screaming out of the night, right? So they're given personification here with their scream. And then this ends with clamor and clangor, which is a much harsher sound, but it still has the alliteration, although the alliteration is strong and kind of gets caught. Clamor and clangor. And then the final is tolling, tolling of iron bells, and it ends with moaning and groaning. And tolling has a connotation of like funeral bells, right? The bells of death. So we start with perhaps someone's youth of enjoying Christmas, their wedding, alarm, right? Which is, I don't know, experiencing some sort of perhaps death in the family, loss of a job, grief, melancholy, depression, turning to old age, and then finally the death that's represented in the tolling at the end with moaning and groaning, right? Moaning and groaning even sounds like it might be something that is kind of a death rattle or death throes as someone is on their deathbed. Other things within, I mean, there's just so much in here that you could kind of look at on the level of diction and on the level of the rhyme, but a couple of things that I want to point out is there's so much repetition again with just these bells going in constantly, and with the repetition, there's elements of assonance as well. So you're even hearing before the actual bell gets there, which is functioning as an onomatopoeia. That there's right around it, like wells is one of the words that comes right around there, or impels or tells. Um, swells is another that's repeated in there. Yells, right? So we're hearing the same E assonant sound within the vowels that's kind of warming up to the actual ringing of said bells. But then there was a word I used earlier that's a new word to me, diacopic, which means that you're repeating words, but with something interrupting it in between. The example that they gave when I looked it up was run, Forest, run, right? You don't say Forest, run, or run, Forest. You throw Forest in the middle. So we see this with the tolling of the bells, bells, to the tolling of the bells, right? So there's that interruption in between that makes it diacopic. And then one last thing I want to say just about the reception of the poem is because it has such a distinct and strong sonic quality, it was very, it's aggressive, it's kind of abrasive, and so it's very divisive. Some critics have suggested that it's kind of a masterwork that almost like prefigures a sort of poetic jazz. Others have said that it really tries too hard and insists on itself, that it's kind of a frivolous, almost cartoonish performance of something. It seems as though, when Poe would go out on his long walks at night in the area near the University of Fordham, which is a Jesuit university in New York, that it was probably these bells that he was writing about and thinking about all of the occasions in which one might hear these church bells, and that a sound could, depending on the occasion or the event or the ritual in someone's life, have foretell or celebrate or doom something very, very different. Anyway, it was a lot of fun to read, and if you found any delight in that, I encourage you to read it out loud yourself, and see if you slip into your strange sort of dark romantic poor rapping that I found myself getting into. But I'm not sure how I feel about that poem, but I am sort of delighted right now just about how that happened within the video. So anyway, I hope you also found it at least somewhat amusing at the very least. And yeah, until tomorrow or next video, may peace be with you all.